All right, so this is the technical fifth episode of the MindFlo podcast, and joining me is Mark Novak. He is a friend, an athlete that I've trained with. He was here at a gym called Strength Camp. If you don't know about it, very popular on YouTube. Mark was one of the coaches there. That's where I met him. We came together kind of on our journey in fitness and weightlifting, the Olympic style weightlifting. We both came together. Mark was an athlete, a coach, and so now Mark brought to my attention. He's like, George, I heard one of your podcasts, and he said, Mark's going to interview me now, but Mark said, hey man, like you were doing some interviewing, but I'm used to you doing all the talking. Someone should probably interview you. And I said, that sounds perfect, Mark. You should be the one to interview me. So now here we are, and this is actually the second video format. We're trying something different on a Google Hangout. We'll see how this works out. So I'm going to pass the mic to Mark, let him take the show.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. It's funny because when I was listening to that podcast the first time, I was like, I don't know if I've ever heard George talk less than he does on his podcast, because usually we'd be at the gym together and you'd say something like, oh, I got to get out of here, I got something to do. And then, and then 2 hours later, we'd still be talking. So I always learned so much from those conversations and from your mindset and your perception of different things and how you approach different things. So I just thought it would be really cool to talk to you a little bit about what you're all about, because you're always into new stuff, whether that's Olympic weightlifting or the new business you're starting right now. So yeah, I just appreciate you having me on, and looking forward to learning something more from George Martinez.
Awesome. Yeah, so yeah, man, always trying to stay at the edge, the tip of the sword, man, like being on the cutting edge, trying something different, innovating myself. So yeah, I was really happy to hear you saying like, yeah, let's start sharing, because it's funny because ever since I said, I need to get my message out on social media, some like reservation came in where, man, maybe I need to hold back on the amount of sharing, or how could I take my message and like chunk it up to different subjects and make it like digestible for someone that's doesn't even know what I do or what I talk about. So it's funny because, yeah, that's why I kind of reserve myself and let other people kind of take the front of the stage, so then I could kind of work on those coaching skills and listening. So it's cool that, someone like you who's got a YouTube channel and, been around a lot of that innovation too yourselves, it's awesome now to kind of share the experience and see what you have to say,
Yeah, definitely. And one thing I think I always learned from you was more of the mental approach to athletics, because you worked with a lot of people in terms of coaching for Olympic lifting. So that's something I was always interested in. And I know your new podcast is called MindFlo, and I kind of think I have an idea of what that means, but just for the person who's never encountered that before or encountered you before, what's kind of your elevator pitch as to what MindFlo means?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. And that's definitely something I get regularly now. And I think I've dialed it down to a couple words.
Nice.
But MindFlo is a play on words for mindful, which mindful is a form of meditation. And of many forms, mindful is the one where you could do it anytime. You just bring your focus to the present moment. And as the saying goes, you only live in the moment. You only live in the now. And so my objective is to get people aware of that they can become present in any moment, be it athletics, working on like the 2.5 hours we've been working on this, trying to get this thing going. But you can become more present. And then flow is flow state. So flow states are, if you've ever been just completely involved in what you're doing, focused, where time kind of goes away, that little internal critic in your head disappears and you're just kind of in the zone or completely immersed in what you're doing, that's being in flow. And so science has shown that that's actually something that can be induced. So our mission is to take people to reach their fullest potential using these peak states of living and become more present in their daily life, be it with their kids, their coworkers, and just overall everyone else, man. Anyone else you meet.
Nice. So when I hear that idea of flow state or being in a flow state and having your mind kind of go blank and you're able to perform at a high level, for me, that conjures up ideas of like really high level athletes or someone in the Olympics or doing something that's very stressful and just doing it really well. So is that what it is, or can that be used by someone just in their day-to-day life? Is that possible as well?
Yeah, completely, man. So like two pieces of literature you can look back to, but one is The Rise of the Superman. That's by Steven Kotler. And he did some extensive research on flow states. And like what you're saying, he did the research for extreme sports athletes. So surfers, snowboarders, I guess skateboarders, any kind of adventure sport. So
Right.
he studied them. And these are the people that have basically broken records faster than any other record had been broken. So if a normal record every 40 years, world record gets broken for like a normal sport, like maybe like wrestling, Olympic sports, say, wrestling, boxing, even weightlifting, the adventure sports athletes were basically like doubling that time or even faster. So in a span of 10 years, they went from a 50 for a snowboarder, a 50-foot gap jump, which is basically like a school bus, to a 200-foot gap jump, which is basically like, the size of a like Eiffel or a Sears Tower or something.
Right.
So that's studying it based off an athlete. But where the term originated was this Dr. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, which is a mouthful to say, but he wrote a book, Flow. And so basically he has a series of things that can basically unlock how this is something that people could use in their life. And it's just anybody from goat herders to factory workers to ballet dancers to literally just about anyone. So basically being in that state of flow is really where self-consciousness goes away and where self-centeredness goes away. So if you think anything that we're doing, like you're trying to start something new and you're messing up and all of a sudden it's like, oh man, this isn't going to work, or oh man, like what is everybody going to think? So that's a little self-conscious. You're not really living in that.
Right.
And then if you're like, oh, well, I'm going to do this because, it doesn't matter what everyone else is doing. It's all about me. That's also kind of outside of that. So I hope that answered the question. It's purely for anybody. It could be someone that, works at Starbucks and they just, making a barista making frappuccinos, cappuccinos, and just, you could see them going off like where there's a line to the door, and that's being in flow.
Right. So for anyone watching who's never heard of this or maybe never experienced it before, and with the people you work with, let's say, are there any daily practices that you recommend for someone who's just kind of getting into this idea of mindfulness or learning what flow state is? Is there anything like a simple daily practice that you recommend to a lot of people?
Yeah. The first thing I recommend people to do is something called box breathing. And there's like an application you can get on your phone. And so what box breathing is like, imagine like I have a Post-it note like here. This is the box. So you're breathing in and out of your nose only. So you start, you inhale, say 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. You hold it. Then you exhale. You inhale for 4 seconds. Then you hold it for 4 seconds. Then exhale for 4 seconds. Then hold it for 4 seconds. So you're inhaling, holding, exhaling for the duration of time, holding for another count of 4, and then exhaling again. So it's like back and or inhaling again. So you do it kind of like a cycle of inhale, hold, exhale, hold.
And how long would you do that for? Just
Well,
for
I
a
would say
beginner.
based off the app has like basic, really
Okay.
simple. Yeah, and it'll count for you. So it'll say inhale, and you could have prompts that go 1, 2, 3, 4, and you usually do it for 10 sets. So you'll do 10 sets of that. With 4 seconds, it's probably like 3 minutes long, or just under 4 minutes.
Okay.
So I would say I'd recommend that as a starting point, because once you become aware of your breathing, it automatically, especially with a little bit of that holding, it automatically brings you to the moment. That's one way, simply, to just bring yourself to the present moment. And as far as the flow is concerned, that's just more mindful. But once we start there, as far as the flow is concerned, one little hint to anybody is, when you're in flow, it's generally something you enjoy doing. It's something you enjoy. So I could give you an example, like working out or Olympic weightlifting. There were parts of weightlifting for you or I, like when we were doing it at the volume that we were doing, like to compete. There's days that you don't feel like doing it, but then you reach like a point in the training where kind of like the pain goes away. That like grumbling over when's it going to end or how much more do I have goes away, and you're just kind of immersed in it. It's like, it's for a split second. If you aren't aware of it, you don't realize it's happening, because it happens in a moment. It's not like a continuation of time. So it's the thing, flow is the thing that can make minutes feel like hours and hours feel like minutes. It's a state of being. And it seems very conceptual, but once you start trying to get your hand on it, like I said, the key is if it's something you enjoy or something you're kind of like fully engaged. It's not just mental, cerebral. It's including your mind, your body, everything. You're using your whole self.
Right. So your advice for someone just starting out would be to try out the box breathing maybe once a day, and then also just start some kind of activity that you enjoy. So it doesn't have to be weightlifting or anything like that. It could be dancing or cooking or anything like that, right?
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
so
anything.
Right. So you work with Olympic lifters, you work with CrossFit athletes, you work with people who are just looking to look a little bit better, you work with people who have businesses. So is there a general theme that you see in terms of more destructive states of mind that people have, or destructive habits that you consistently see throughout your athletes and people you work with?
Yeah, that's a good question. And when you say destructive, like, what do you mean? Like something that's kind of...
Something that's holding them back from progressing to the next level?
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So some of the habits that I see generally would be what I'd call like self-limiting doubt or self-limiting beliefs. So there's already a ceiling over their own head. And a lot of that, like, it kind of goes outside of the mindfulness, but this is where, if you think about, so I'm going to just kind of lay the foundation here.
Yeah.
If you think about why to meditate. Some people that I talk to a lot, well, I don't have time to meditate and I can't get my mind to turn off. That's a big thing that I hear all the time. Well, the goal of meditation is not to stop thinking completely. The goal of meditation is to become aware of those thoughts, is to kind of get a hold of some of those subconscious or those things that your mind's just constantly running all the time. It does not stop. And so generally our natural patterns of thought are negative and tend to be destructive. So it's like, I've been training physically for 10 years plus, and still there's days I don't feel like working out. And so it's like interrupting that conversation in my head and saying, okay, this is why I'm going to do it. So what I normally see is people unaware of those thoughts kind of that are ruling their mind, like I said, where where they kind of have self-limiting beliefs. So whatever it is that they want to try and do, so say they want to try and PR a mile run. Well, where they're at today, they've already got an idea in their head of what's possible. So that's something that makes it more challenging, because even if they physically can do more, mentally they're already giving out before their body physically has really put out its maximum. Same thing with earning money, same thing with business, same thing with picking a career or finding what they want to do in life, because there's already some kind of invisible barrier that says this is what's possible and this is what's not. So it's a lot of, I guess it would be a personal, like a sense of what's real, or a self-limiting, conversation. So it's like, I can't really pinpoint it too, Mark, on one thing, but yeah, certain behaviors. And it's also not realizing that you're lying to yourself.
Right.
Like, oh yeah, I'm working on everything I needed to work on today. But you started the diet a month ago and you still weigh the exact same.
Right. And is that something you see with your more competitive athletes as well? Or
yeah, the more competitive athletes, the higher the competition level, and you know this too, is it's more mental. The more mental it becomes. Like, your body is only telling you so much, and you already know that through those phases of your training where you're really trying to dial in and like reach for more, it's all mental. It's all mental. It could be so simple to where you got in an argument with somebody, a family member, a spouse, or a friend, or a coworker, client even, and then all of a sudden now you are carrying that with you into your training session.
Right.
And that happens to athletes all the time, and they don't realize that it's their muscles aren't any more achy. They're not any more injured, because everybody at that level is operating under some kind of strain. It's just, where is their mind? Like, what are they telling themselves?
Right.
And that's at a certain level. It's like, once you've reached that certain level, where you're competing not just to compete, but to be on the podium and be the top 10%, now it boils down to your mindset. Like, how can you push beyond your own limits? Because you can say, hey, look, I'm already better than the rest of these people. I've already reached that goal. I'm pushing as hard as I can. Because compared to the people around you, you're like, oh, I'm pushing as hard as I can.
Yeah.
And so that's when it gets difficult, especially as a coach.
Right.
Because you want to see people at their best but not get hurt.
And that's interesting too, because you've been a coach for competitive athletes, but I've actually seen you compete as well. And what would you say, like, I know that being able to coach someone in competition has helped me as an athlete, because it allows me to, when I'm in the heat of competition, to take a step back for a second and look at things objectively. But what would you say your triumphs and your struggles in competition have done to enhance your ability to coach other people?
Yeah, I would say, just from being competitive myself, what it's done for me is just learning how to turn the switch all the way. Like, not leaving anything on the table, not holding anything back. Like, knowing if I walk away from this competition here, I know that I gave myself no outs, like no ways out, and I gave it everything I had. So then I know that when everything is said and done, and the outcome is done, that I can still walk away with my head held high, and that it's an ultimate test. That competition itself is the ultimate test for, like, how well did I train? How well did I prepare? Did I put the time in? because that's going to be the tell-all. I mean, you get a little extra juice being in competition, but if your training wasn't, if you quit sessions early, if you didn't do everything you had to do, those are the things that can kind of come back and bite you in the butt. You know, they can haunt you.
Yeah.
It's going to tell you, like, well, that's what happens when you didn't do that. And there's always those regrets, you know, but that's what I would say has allowed me to coach athletes the most, to be able to excel in competition is, you know, you're really competing with yourself only. And at the end of the day, no matter what kind of a competition you're doing, but specifically with CrossFit and weightlifting, it's individual. So you truly are just competing with yourself.
Right. Yeah, that's the cool thing, because as soon as you said that idea of leaving everything on the platform or the field or whatever it is, I'd experienced that before in other sports, but in weightlifting, I experienced that more than anything I had ever done before in my life. Because you know when you step off the stage whether you did your best or not. You may have missed a lift or bombed out or whatever, but you know if you brought your game in terms of how you were mentally in that moment. So that feeling of having something left in the tank is not a good feeling, especially when you're doing an individual sport such as weightlifting, where you call the shots in terms of how much weight you lift. You control your movements on the stage. Everything's in your control. And when you step off knowing that you did everything in your power that you could to succeed, that's an amazing feeling, and one that I haven't experienced in any other sport. So yeah, it's cool that you brought that up, because I'd never really thought of it before, but I'd felt it. So to hear you explain it was pretty cool. And another thing was that idea of weightlifting being a revealer of what your training was like is really cool too, because weightlifting is essentially the show me sport. It's you step on the stage and show me what you got. Show me what your training was like. Show me what your nutrition was like. Show me what your recovery is like. Show me what your mental game is like, because I'm going to see it. Everyone's going to see it when you step on that stage. So that's why I think it's starting to become more popular, especially when people compete for that first time and just realize that they get a completely objective picture of what their training has been like and what their preparation has been like. And I hate to say it, but most people are kind of disingenuous when you ask them for a good picture of who you are. If you ask someone, hey, like, you think I'm doing the right thing here? They'll be like, oh yeah, for sure, you're doing the right thing. Like, this looks good. But they, whatever the reason is, they can't be objective with you socially or culturally. It's just not acceptable in some cases. So when you have something like weightlifting that says, yeah, you did a good job, or okay, we know what we need to work on the next time, that's so valuable to have.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, it's definitely a tell-all, and it's also like, you know, just to take what you were just saying, like, some people are not going to be objective. They're not going to tell you, no, that was not good. No, you could have, you know, it's like you want to kind of coddle the situation. And it's more like there's nothing to coddle. I mean, if you really think about it, in a weightlifting meet, you only get 6 attempts, 3 per lift. So at the end of the day, like, those 3 attempts, that's all you got. You know, you don't really have much other gray area there. So, like, if any one thing is out of alignment, and what makes it even more challenging, something doesn't go according to plan, that's going to influence your decisions. It's going to influence how your process of doing things. Because in the training room, in the gym, if you miss a lift, there's always that, I'm going to come right back and get it. So you may even take a couple seconds and grab the bar and go. But in a competition, you don't have that opportunity. You almost are like forced to go back inside and be with yourself and say, now what are you going to do? I feel that's where the coach comes in, you know, as far as an encourager or someone to at least keep you grounded and focused on, you know, doing what you know how to do, which is make lifts. But yeah, it's really the tell all. And then there's, it brings me to think, like, the last competition I did, I bombed but one lift, and it was an experience like none other. But what I had always felt within myself was, after my first experience, I went 2 for 6, and then I went 6 for 6 and 5 for 6. So then, I was on a good track. But it was this moment that, it's inevitable. Like, in the process of learning or doing anything, and as the stakes get higher, be it personally, like you're trying to lift more weights than you normally would at a competition, or you're trying to compete for a podium spot or a record, as the stakes get higher, it doesn't get any easier. It just, now you're starting a whole new level. So it's like, yeah, you could have been competing at a local level and lifting, and you start out and you suck, meaning you don't make but 1 or 2 lifts, and then you come into yourself, and at that same level, you're just making lifts. And then now you're trying to set your best at competition. And then you're trying to win a competition. So every time you enter a new phase, it's like starting all over again. And that's what I became aware of. So it was like I was already going into it knowing that, but that's something that it's really knowing where you're at, especially with weightlifting.
Yeah, and it was crazy too, because I was at that meet competing as well, where you bombed out on your snatches, and it was weird to see you in that place because it seemed like it happened so quickly, and you were in like your own little world, and like you said, it was just kind of inevitable. Like, it seemed like it was going to happen, but it was happening all at once. What was your mindset like in that moment? Because it's very public, like you're failing in front of people, and from the outside it looks, I guess, overwhelming, but on the inside it's probably even more so. So could you talk people through your process of failing very publicly in front of people, and whether, or what you took from that?
Yeah, so I remember the moment, and this is where, and this plays into everything. So I've always known this, I guess, proverb, or it was like a Native American fable that they talk about the wolves, the 2 wolves. You have a good wolf and a bad wolf. And so this young boy asks his grandfather, what's going on with the wolves? Like, he says, there's these 2 wolves, they're at battle in your mind. And one of them is trying to beat the other. And he said, well, how do you know who's going to win? He's like, it just depends on which one you feed. So one thing that I've always told every athlete that I work with is that there is always this internal conflict going on, that dialogue. Whether you're at your best and you just, let's use weightlifting, hit a PR on the platform that you've never even touched before. Whether it's that or you miss all your lifts, that conflict is still there. It's being able to kind of cut through all the noise and just be and do. Like, not try and control the outcome, just go. And I believe you know that when you hit your lifts in a competition, that's what it feels like. It feels like everything was going on, but then all of a sudden, everything closed in to one fraction of a second, and then you either make the lift or you don't. There's not a lot of other things going on. So for this particular moment, it was, in the beginning, things didn't feel right, but that's normal. So I don't try and associate one or the other. And then when I missed my first lift, I usually could shrug that off to, hey, that's not normal for me. And then the second one, and then that's when the doubt started coming in. Well, if I miss this one, then I could miss the next one. And again, that's a normal process too, instead of just taking it one lift at a time. But then when I started to miss the next one, I said, okay, this is new territory for me. And literally, this was the conversation I was having with myself. This is new territory. So now it's a chance for me to excel and prove myself right. Like, because I remember I was going up every lift still too. And it was my opportunity to prove myself right or, fail. And then that's a new experience too. And how do I take from that and then progress from there? So once I bombed out, it really was like a turmoil and conflict. But being a coach at the same time as competing, it was a no-brainer to not let it affect me. It was affecting me on the inside, but not on the outside. It was an opportunity for me to say, hey, this is what I chose. I'm with it, and I'm going to just keep moving forward. So when I failed the next clean, and something just really, it just shows you the power of your mind because something just felt off. Like mentally, there was just, that switch was not fully clicked. Like I was too aware of what was going on around me, if that makes sense. Like seeing a person like make a movement in the crowd, usually it's kind of like that. You don't see any of that. But
that's interesting.
In these moments, I sense things. So I wasn't completely, I guess I wasn't completely invested in what I was doing. So, but how it was, man, it was, like I said, a great opportunity to show a victory, even in what you would call defeat. To just be like, hey, I'm going to accept the defeat of the moment, but I'm not going to be self-conscious or doubtful of my decisions because of the fact that you have to stretch yourself in order to grow. Just like I was saying, you have to reach for new levels in order to grow. Because on a local stage, to just hit what you know you can hit, yes, that's good as a competitor to build what you could call platform time. But as someone who wants to grow beyond that, you have to hit those walls. Because I'm 31 now. At the time, I was 30. So I'm not an adolescent and a youth athlete. So that happens to youth athletes all the time. And that's absolutely normal for them. But, when you got athletes like us that are in your 20s and 30, it seems like you take more of a hit, but you're really not. You're going through experiences that would have just been like, duh, it's going to happen, that you just go through, that just shape and mold you into a greater competitor.
And that's where you see the value of having a coach there who can talk you through that. I think you're different in the sense that you were coaching at that meet as well, and you are a coach, so you were able to draw on your own experience. But for someone like me who's less experienced as a coach, it was at all the meets I went to, it was amazing when I had a coach there who could talk me through what was happening and kind of reset my focus onto the next lift, because I didn't have to, pay attention to anything. I could kind of just put my head down, hear someone tell me something, and then do that thing. So then when I got on stage, it was kind of just like you weren't paying attention to anything, just what your coach told you. So it's really interesting from my perspective of that day how well you were able to handle it. But it's also interesting to see how having a mentor or a coach there to guide you through that is also really valuable for many competitors, if not all competitors.
Yeah, it's essential. I would say it's completely essential. Only in my own stubbornness would I say that, you could do it all by yourself. It's absolutely not the facts. If you're going to really reach your highest heights in anything, you need someone to coach you. You have to have someone to coach you, and then you have to be coachable. So being coachable is a whole different thing, and that's the experience that I had. And, like I said, being a coach, there's a lot of other things that were attached to it because, wanting to show my own physical athletic ability and, value as an athlete, but also setting an example as a coach. So it really, it changed my whole way of thinking because I came into weightlifting from that exact route. as a coach to an athlete, not necessarily an athlete into a coach, which is normally how people take the path of becoming a coach. They start out as an athlete. Granted, I did sports when I was younger and in high school, but for weightlifting particularly, I started out as a coach. So, it's like you can't turn the coach off once you are a coach. So you're seeing things a little bit different. Your thought process is a little different. If you're trying to perform at your best. But yeah, it's someone to be there so they could do the thinking, so you could just focus on doing what you're there to do, which is lift weights. And so, yeah, that was a good experience, man.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the thing too. I think when it comes to pursuing any type of activity, whether that's Olympic weightlifting or running a marathon or pursuing some type of business venture, the thinking is not the thing that people need to be doing. What they need is to be taking action. So if you're thinking about running a marathon, you shouldn't be thinking, you should be out there running. If you're thinking about starting a business, the best thing you can do is stop thinking about it and just take action and do something. But so often, especially in my experience, I get caught up into what is the exact perfect right thing to do, and I end up thinking more than I do. I think more than I take action. So it was amazing for me to get coached at certain times in my life, because you quickly realize, yeah, perhaps my coach's methods aren't perfect, but there's no such thing as a perfect method or a perfect way of thinking. So I got my best results when I just shut my mind off and he told me what to do and I did those things. Is that something that you come across with people you're coaching now? Because you're working with a lot of different people. Is they have a lot of trouble with thinking they need to do the perfect thing and they don't take action enough?
Absolutely. And yeah, that's pretty much what now is the shift of what it means to be a coach. Because to be a coach at anything, or someone that has experience of life or has a skill set that they're trying to instill that knowledge and information into a person or a group of people, what becomes difficult is now with YouTube, with online educational, like universities, I would say, like I guess there's one that's called Uverse or something, where you could just download whatever. Say you want to learn how to make a YouTube video, or you want to learn how to make your own web page, or learn how to weightlift, or learn how to be a personal trainer. Whatever you want to learn, the information is now just in the droves through the internet. So for anyone to now, I am the expert of this, there's still so much more information available. So for you to really say that you know it all, you don't. So all your clients or people that are trying to do something, like you were saying, trying to run a marathon, trying to start that business, they have access to all the same information that you may already know. But the only thing that's different is having implemented the information, like knowing it because of doing it. Like you live it out every day, day in and day out. It's a consistent practice. So there's a big difference, and what makes it difficult as a coach is why people get into this, trying mode and having to find the perfect route or the perfect plan that's gonna work before they even take that first step. Well, with all the information that's available and the advancement in technology all the time, it's always going to change. So if you don't start by, I need to be perfect, if you don't stop starting by, I need the information, I need to be perfect, and just start taking action in whatever the first step may be, you're going to get paralyzed in that place. And that's what makes it hard as an athlete, is because, or not as an athlete, but as a coach, because people can know everything already. They're the quote-unquote know-it-all. I already know that. But what is really the guiding light of knowing? Being able to do it. And then being able to share that information in a way that everybody understands if they want, and then can be consistent and find really a discipline in whatever it is that they want to do. So say I want to start a business. Well, it's a daily discipline. Some days you're gonna fall off the wagon. So if I'm on a, my goal is to get down to 6% body fat and I'm at 20. Well, it's a daily discipline that you have to start somewhere of tracking where am I at, 20%, where do I want to go? It's not about get there as fast as I can. It's about eat the right foods, drink the water, exercise, get more activity than what you take in, and do that day in and day out, day in and day out, day in and day out until you see the result. At times we fall off the wagon, but the key is to find discipline, to find joy in the process of doing. But yeah, it's a huge thing right now, man. And you'll see that more and more as the marketing gets more creative. As people become more creative of trying to fill what you want with something, be it learning this new job, this new, widget, is the better that they get at teaching you or making you feel like you need something that you don't already have. That's what's going to make it harder for everybody to actually see through what they want. But here's the positive of that, Mark. It makes less competition. And not that we're in it to compete, but it makes for less competition. Because most people are going to say, I need all the information first. I need to learn it inside and out first, and then I'm going to start doing it. But by the time they actually want to take action, there's going to already be something else that now they have to start and try and do and whatever. And again, they're back in the same boat. But if people can't realize that, and again, that's exactly why you need a coach. A coach doesn't teach you something you don't already know. A coach helps you discover how to use what you already know. Like, helps you. That's why there's so many coaches that teach the same thing different ways. Because it's all about how can you bring it out of the person, the individual.
Yeah, and it's all about also just finding something that you do enjoy doing so that you can find that consistency.
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing is people want a certain result from what they're doing, but they just don't enjoy a thing enough to be consistent with it. I heard a quote that it was talking about love in terms of like a relationship, and it was saying that you can love someone so much that you don't care where that love takes you, and that can be applied to fitness as well, or to business. You can love, we've just been using weightlifting a lot. You can love weightlifting so much that you don't care where that's going to take you. You just want to be doing that thing. And inherent in doing that thing is you are probably going to start looking better. You're going to get stronger. You're going to feel better, more confident. But all that stuff is on the peripheries as opposed to being the focus of what you're doing. So
Exactly.
it is good to try different things, but just I think our advice to people, I don't want to speak for you, but it would be to find something that you love so much that you don't have to worry so much about what the benefit is going to be from getting it. You just love doing that thing, and everything else kind of comes naturally. And if people are always looking for a new program or a new activity to pursue, they're going to miss out on that, all that other stuff that comes along with it.
Absolutely, man. And as soon as you say that, like, I hear like screeching in my ears, like from everybody and even us. It's like, well, what if I don't know what I love to do? Like, I don't know if I love to do anything. I don't love to do anything. Like, there's nothing, and that's a lie. You can't love what you do. And so that's like defining love, because to define love, like what you said, it'll take you wherever you want. But people get this, like, it's easy for us to get this fantasy of, oh, well, if I love it, that means every day, all day, like, I can't get enough of it. No, that doesn't mean that. To love something is just to do it anyway. It's like, you know that it'll be regardless. Like, no matter what, from early on in my life, I enjoyed being physically active, running, playing sports. That gave me a sense of purpose and enjoyment and fulfillment. So no matter what I do, no matter where I find myself in life, that will always be a part of my life. And how do I know that? Because I can look back throughout the course of my life and see that that was always a part of it. No matter if I was chasing more money, more knowledge, more education, acceptance, all that stuff, I was still centering my life around being active. And so why not make that something that, hey, if I could do that, for example, like why I became a trainer and a coach, if I could do that and help people and serve my community and impact people's life positively, well, dang, even better, and make a living doing it, that's great. So that's where I tell people to start. But how you really start is ask the question to yourself, what is it that I love? What is it that I could do all the time, that I would want to do all the time? Not let me ask Google how to find out what I love to do, because that's playing into the same thing that we're doing. Because we both worked for companies, and you had a company where you create a product. And so creating a product is about, basing it off what people want. Like, what's a goal, and how can I help share this product that's going to help you get to your goal? Well, if it's always like, I have to have somebody tell me what I want, what's really going to get me there, then you're never really going to learn how to, like, that instinctual, hey, well, I'll just do this. That instinctual do what you enjoy, like finding that, it goes away. It'll die inside you, like, because you're always looking externally to find that. And it's not something external. It's something that you have to listen, and it has to come from within. So that's just, honestly, Mark, that's a cultural shift. That's a shift in the culture, like getting each other to realize, like, in some funny way, you're already, whether you have the career you want, whether you have the love that you want, whether you have the income that you want, in some way, you're already doing everything and have everything you need to be and have anything you want. But it's really doing that work with yourself personally to find that. So then it's not a matter of someday you'll get there. It's you're already there, and that's it. You're just on the path to whatever it is you set, wherever the target may be. And you have a map of getting to where you want to go versus, like, I have to plan everything. Before I start, it has to be here. And at this much, in 3 months in, I have to be here. 6 months there, I have to be here. That'll tire you out. So
for sure. And that's another thing too, going off that idea of it being more of a cultural thing. People think when you say, oh, I love doing this, it means that you're saying, oh, this is easy and I just show up and it's a breeze. I don't have to work at it. It just kind of flows. But really, when you love something, that means you're going to put in the work. You're willing to do the work and struggle a little bit and lose your way a little bit. Of course, have good moments and moments of triumph. But at the same time, loving something means being willing to work at it. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong. So, like you said, we're not here saying that you should do one thing or the other. You should try a million things, but just find something that you're willing to put forth an effort into. And that's what loving something is. It's not showing up every day being like, wow, this is so fun. I love this. It's super easy. I just show up and everything happens for me. No, there's going to be days where you don't want to do it. But because you love it and you love what it brings out in you, you're going to show up even on those days where you don't want to be there. So yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a huge misconception about what loving something means, because I think people are looking for that instant result or that that easy path, when really, if you want to find something you truly love, that's going to mean struggling, and that's going to mean failing, and that's going to mean going through some growing pains along the way. So I think that's kind of what you're all about too, is enlightening people to that process.
Yeah. And so like right now in life, the biggest thing that's going on that's capturing everybody's attention is this fight that's coming up this weekend with Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather. So you look at these two people and you say, oh, look at Floyd Mayweather, you know, whatever you want to say about him or Conor McGregor, very, you know, really being flamboyant and like self-centered and, you know, egotistical. This is pretty much the show that they're putting on right now. Like you take these two individuals and really look, you say, oh, well, they got it made. You know, they could train all that much and do all that, what they're doing because they got all that money, because they've made all the money. Like because they have all that money, they got it easy. Well, if you really think about it, Floyd Weathers put his entire life, blood, sweat, and tears, literally blood, sweat, and tears, into this to be able to have what he has now. Like materialistically, he can have anything that he wants on this earth. He could pretty much have it. But it's real simple for people to say, oh, well, look at them, and, you know, they're self-centered, they're cocky, you know, they're all about themselves. Well, in reality, they are everything but about themselves. And that's going to take a minute for everybody to sink in. Even Conor McGregor, both guys are completely selfless. They have to think about, to really start getting this power within you to activate and like take you to heights that you've never been able to reach. It's as soon as you start taking the focus off of you and start putting it on other people, other individuals. So you listen to Conor McGregor, his story is, I did it because I wanted to be able to change my family's life to where they never had to work again. You know, to be able to take care of my girlfriend because she was there with me when I was on welfare. To be able to have a future and a family. Like, that now automatically takes that drive and supercharges it because it's not about you. It's absolutely about you. If it was just about him, he would have quit when he said he was going to quit. You know, there was a moment in his life when he quit. He's like, I'm done. I can't make it. And now, who are the people that were with him? His family, his girlfriend. And he felt like a failure because he didn't have any money. He's still on welfare, but he has 2 titles. So he's like, I'm not going to go back to the gym. I'm going to find a job and a career. Why? Because he wants to do it for his family. He wants to show for them. Now, fast forward, he made it to the UFC, and he did everything he did, but he did it for his family. And just for that egotistical, make all the money, have all the toys, that's a fringe benefit. But doing it just for those things, you won't last. Because it's the very reason why, how come so many people are fully capable, but they can't, you know, learn how to earn, you know, $5,000 more in a year. Or they can't learn how to get off of medication that you could get off of, get themselves healthy. How come they can't learn how to do that and put it into effect? Because it's all about themselves, because they don't want to look bad, they don't want to fail, they don't want to make a mistake. But these guys, they were willing to take all the hits, make all the mistakes, but because it was for something larger than themselves. And Floyd Mayweather said the exact same thing. He said he did it for his family. It's only for his children and his mom. That's what he's doing it for. So if you really can learn to read between the lines and know that people are just people, but what makes people, and both of these guys do a lot of like, you know, giving outreach, but it's their character. We don't want to see the humble, unfortunately, we don't want to see the 2 humble guys that like each other or that completely respect each other, shake hands and, you know, go at it. We want to see those characters. But at the end of the day, the secret is you got to do it for something bigger than yourself. Like, start reaching for higher goals, but take yourself out of it. How can you serve your family? How can you serve your community? How can you serve your city? How can you serve your organization? The bigger you reach out, the more resources and power you're going to get. So that's something that I'm really learning and wanting to share with people, because you could see it in everyday life. It's just hard to see because, it's really a, I guess, survival of the fittest mentality still.
Right. And all that being said, who you got in the fight?
Honestly, man, I really don't have a dog in this fight, but if I was to say, I believe there's going to be an upset.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I believe there will be an upset. Contrary to any kind of, I don't have like I don't really have a huge background in either sport.
Yeah.
But I just have a feeling there's going to be an upset.
Yeah. So, yeah. Neither do I. I don't have much knowledge at all about boxing or mixed martial arts or how the two will go together, but there's a feeling in the air, isn't there? I think that's going around a little bit that someone might get dethroned, but we'll see. And it is interesting that you talk about how those guys are selfless, because people only see the big show beforehand. They only see the controversy and the conflict and the bragging and all that kind of stuff. But if you really want to see what these guys are about, you kind of have to look at them in a vulnerable moment. And I was really struck when McGregor got beat by Nate Diaz. He got choked out the first time. I was really struck by his demeanor in the post-fight press conference, where he said things like humble in victory, humble in defeat. He congratulated Nate. He said, I either win or I learn. So this is going to kind of spur me on to better and bigger and better things. And you could really tell that was his true nature in that moment, not the guy who's out there trying to get pay-per-view dollars and make as much money as he can on the fight. You really saw who he truly was, and he really is humble, and they both are, and they're just masters or trying to attain mastery at the thing they're doing. And like you said, you have to read between the lines to see that, but I think to a certain degree, the majority of people who are at that level, like you said, are doing it for selfless reasons. And it's hard to see that through the nice cars and the money and the clothes and the girls and all that kind of stuff, when it's really not about that at all.
Yeah, it's completely not. And dude, that's not to say that their character, I don't know anything about either one of these guys. But I just know that it's like if there's a winning formula, a big part of that formula has to be doing it for something, having a bigger reason than yourself, just for yourself. Because if I was just doing it for myself, hey, I let myself down every day. We all do. Like, we all do things. We all do things or we all don't do things that we said we were going to do. I was going to do this today. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. Well, you let yourself down every day. But to tell somebody else, like say, Mark, we're going to do this, and then not. Now I'm accountable. Now I'm making a statement and wanting to commit to that statement and wanting to stand by my word. And once you break that, it wasn't just letting me down. In a way, I let you down. You could say all day, George, I'm sorry. It's all good. Don't worry about it. But deep down inside, you let that person down. Not to get hung up on it, but that's just the power of doing something without yourself. So if you just start as a practice, whenever you say something to someone else, that you're going to do it, for one, catch yourself and know, are you really gonna? And if you aren't, don't say you're going to do it. So then you can start, that's another discipline, to be holding yourself to a higher standard, be more accountable. But yeah, that's the magic in that.
Yeah, and that's cool, because I think that kind of brings us full circle in terms of those two daily practices you brought up in the beginning of the box breathing and mindfulness, and kind of doing an activity that you enjoy doing it, because the box breathing is going to allow you to have those moments where you have to sit alone and think. Eventually it's going to come up, like, why am I doing certain things? What is my motivation? You're forced to stop distracting yourself with your phone or conversations with other people or television or arguments, and really sit with yourself and learn why you're doing certain things. And not a lot of people have that opportunity. And also, pursuing a new activity in which you maybe have a coach or teammates, that's something that's going to hold you accountable no matter what you do to try and get out of it. So those two things really kind of tie into exactly what you said people should do as their daily practice of box breathing and picking up a new activity to pursue. So that's kind of interesting how that came full circle in that full hour.
Yeah, I couldn't have done it better, man. And I think it's probably a good time for us to cut it off. How long do you think we've been on here?
We have been on for exactly 1 hour, 2 minutes, actually 1 hour and 3 minutes. I got That's the timer perfect. Right here.
Yeah, I think that was good, man. Honestly, Mark, I appreciate it. I want to continue to do this. I think this is like a great format. If we could come up with, some kind of direction from now, I definitely would like to continue. But yeah, man, I think in closing, I think that what we could take away is, make sure, focus. If you wanted to start something today, just try that box breathing. Do it every day. Write down how long you're willing to commit just to try. Hey, if you're going to try it for a day, try it for a day. If you say you're going to try it for a day, try it for a day. And then if you don't, and you said you were, for one, I would tell you first, tell somebody you're going to do it. Hey, Mark, I'm going to start trying this box breathing. Okay, well, you're going to, then Mark, now I'll tell you, hey, man, make sure I did it tomorrow. Or Mark, you'll tell me, if you told me you're going to do it, I'll say, Mark, well, then I'm going to check with you tomorrow, see if you did it. And then if you didn't do it, then now it's a chance to say, hey, I didn't do it, and I'm going to try it again. Like that's the biggest, you would be surprised how hard that is to say, like how many times I've done where someone's like, hey, George, check this out. Oh, yeah, I'll check it out. Hey, did you check that out? Oh, no, man, I forgot. Yep. Okay, and then we leave it there. Like, not doing something plus an excuse makes it okay. And it's not good or bad. It just means, like, look at how you treat when you say you're going to do something. Look at how you treat it. You treat it like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, because in your mind, you do all these things, but really, you do nothing. Start with this box breathing, every day, practice, and then note, like, what came to mind, like, write it down. It'll take literally 10 minutes total. Get to the point where you could box breathe for 10 minutes, and then, write down a journal for 10 minutes. But start 5 minutes of box breathing, 5 minutes of journaling. What came up? What were you feeling? What did you experience? What are some goals you have? But that's like a great starting point.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, just from me, I appreciate you having me on. It's always a pleasure talking to you. I feel like I learn something new every time we get together and talk, even though our talks usually you only got 2 minutes to talk. Today we had a full hour, so that was awesome. Yeah. And for anyone out there listening, we appreciate you listening. And if you want to find George, you can find him on Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff on the MindFlo podcast, which we're on right now. So yeah, that's all I got. And have a good day, everyone.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Mark. And let's keep it going.